Scarberian Catru. This is David Barrett. You're listening to Scarberian Catru with our special guest from Crown Lands, Kevin Comeau. Well, this is the debut episode of my new podcast, Scarberian Catru. Something I came up with. Kevin, do you like it?
I love it. It's, I think it gets across being a prog nerd growing up in 80s Toronto, 70s Toronto era.
You know, it's not unlike, I would say that in some ways maybe you growing up in Oshawa is the same type of thing as growing up when I did in Scarborough, which they used to call Scarborough Scarberia way back in the day because it was like this isolated suburban thing, much like what the lyrics to Subdivisions were all about, you know?
Yeah.
So I just kind of loved the term and kind of grew to embrace coming from Scarborough as opposed to feeling like the need to have some history where your upbringing was somehow more exotic. And you know all about that, right?
Right.
The schwa.
Yeah. Actually, you know,
was it the schwa initially?
I grew up in Whitby, the town next to Oshawa. So I grew up trying to convince people I wasn't from Oshawa. You say, "Where are you from?" Whitby. Oh, Oshawa. No.
To make
Whitby.
yourself feel better somehow.
Yeah. I feel like the distinction between Whitby and Oshawa is very similar to the distinction between Burlington and Hamilton, whereas Oshawa and Hamilton are, you know, slightly higher population and truly like industry economies, right? Where with Hamilton with steel and Oshawa with the GM, and then Whitby and Burlington are more bedroom communities for those towns and the GTA, right? So a lot of folks who live in Burlington and Whitby are commuting to Toronto and work, you know, typically more white collar jobs, and folks who live in Oshawa and Hamilton are you know, work in the factories and that's where like a big part of the economy is. And so growing up in Whitby and then moving around a bunch and eventually settling in Oshawa, I saw a town that was basically built up by an industry that had abandoned it. And so I think in the last few years, I've seen Oshawa like kind of go through a rebirth process as more of a university town, because now there's the Trent location there. There's the campus for Durham College right downtown and UIT. And I feel like I've seen like a whole trend towards more trying to be friendlier towards students, and they're trying to build a lot more apartments. But it's such a rough, it's a rough town, and I feel like, you know, I'm sure you encountered that in Scarborough, but I don't know. I don't really know Scarborough that well, but I feel like there's that feeling of desperation to get out.
Well, people say that, but you know, there's a lot of actors and musicians came out of the area that I grew up in, and so on one hand, you would think, well, it is this suburban kind of thing, but a lot of great talent came out of there, so it can't be that bad. Right. And I remember, you know, I was going to ask you what it was like for you, because we played high schools, we played in bands. I quickly went downtown and discovered all these other bands through ads, because it was all pre-internet, right? So you would see ads in Toronto Star, later Now Magazine, and you would meet all these guys, and then you'd be in studios, and before you knew it, you know, you have gigs, and then you find the right band or whatever, and then, you know, I'm out of high school and I'm on the road, and that's right. Just kind of how it went. It was a little maybe different for you. I was going to ask, what was it like? Was there any kind of fertile ground for, as a teenager, playing music where you were growing up, or you know, or were you kind of like the odd guy, you know, with the double neck and the Moog?
I was definitely the odd guy, but most of the musicians that are interesting are the hometown heroes for us when I was growing up was Protest the Hero, right? They were from Whitby, and they went to, I think it was Anderson, which was just down the road from us. We went, you know, myself and my original bandmates when I was playing in high school, we went to Sinclair Secondary, which had a really good music program. And I feel like public music, publicly funded music education is so important. and I wouldn't be where I'm at. I mean, where I'm at, whatever. You know, I haven't had to work a real job in a long time and been able
Yeah.
to do music full time. So I feel like I'm very lucky to do that, and I wouldn't be here where I'm at now without having a really good band program in elementary school, and then a really, really good musical theater program in my high
Wow.
school, and a good jazz band program, and classical like bands. So like I was able to play bass and percussion in the concert band and the jazz band, and then I got to play bass for a bunch of musical theater. I remember having to learn West Side Story in 12th grade, and that was. I feel like a lot of that score sounds more complicated than most of like Emerson, Lake and Palmer's music, right?
Because
There's
it
like some
is.
crazy,
Oh yeah.
crazy time
Yeah.
signature changes in there, and that was all it was Bernstein, right? Like what a
That's yes, that's one of Steve Vai's favorite thing. I had that record as a kid
cool.
as well, and I went out to Stratford to see it several years ago because Scott from the David Barrett Trio was doing front of house for that production, and it was
Oh wow.
amazing. Yeah, amazing. I went to try my hand at taking music in school, and I lasted one semester in grade 10, and my mark was I got 20%.
Oh my God.
And so I dropped out of that
Was that just
class.
because like was the pedagogy just not like to your liking? Was it a bit too like stodgy?
I
Like
was a little difficult.
oh, okay.
And I couldn't really grasp reading very well. And I played guitar, and there was this other guy, my buddy Jamie, he played guitar in the band. And Jamie was a great player and could really read. And he studied with L.A. Kasner. I was mostly self taught. I did take a few lessons with my friend Brian O'Sullivan, and he taught me some really valuable things like modes and circle of fifths and stuff when I was really young, like 13.
Yeah, so you have a great grasp on like the vocabulary of music, and
Thank you.
you've really got like such a handle on melody and chord structure, harmony, and like all those things you just mentioned. So why was it that reading music was kind of like the point where you're like, oh fuck this isn't for me?
I don't think that I couldn't catch up with the rhythmic notation. I could read maybe the notes to a point, but I could never really read in a way that, like, if I learned something complicated, like I taught myself Stairway to Heaven when I was like 11. That was the first song that I really learned the whole song.
And was that by ear?
Well, I used the tablature in
Okay.
the and then mostly I never really bothered with tablature. But there was this book called there was no books back then, right? But there was
Mm-hmm.
this one book called The Complete Led Zeppelin, and they had the piano chords and they had the guitar thing, so you could take the finger picking and learn it properly in terms of their inversions and the chords. They actually had that back then,
Right. Yeah. Like I know
right?
exactly what you're talking about, where you see the tab and the notation. Where I feel like
Yeah.
that's what you need as a guitar player. I think is there's like 4 or 5 different positions you can play any series of notes.
Right, and it either clicks with some people or it doesn't.
Yeah, and I feel
Right.
like, but if you have both, I think that really teaches it, because I feel like tab, like you just mentioned, like a lot of tab doesn't give you any sense of the rhythm of the notes, and that's why
Right.
you see a lot of guys who they know where to put their fingers at the right time, but there's just no feeling. And I feel like we've seen like a whole kind of influx of players who
I have so many stories. Like I remember going to see a band that were terrible, and it would have been at the Falcon's Nest, which was a Scarborough band. And then the band was awful, and the guitar player wasn't very good. And then they did Ladies' Night in Buffalo, and the guy played the Steve Vai solo note for note. And I thought, well, this is
wow.
interesting. Here's a band that really is terrible, and the guitar player doesn't play well, but yet he copped the solo. So isn't that strange that people can actually do that? And then maybe the feel and the playing isn't really there, but so that's a whole other thing. Some people can learn things kind of almost like talking phonetically, like being an actor, but you're not really projecting. You're just kind of going through the motions, right? So I don't know. I ended up really learning everything after that by ear. And then when it got to more complicated things like Barrios and classical pieces like
Yeah,
that, I learned them all by ear. Ave Maria, all by ear. And it's crazy.
that is.
I wouldn't the one thing, if you do it by ear, you'll never forget it. So that's a great thing. Out of all the
Interesting.
solo
Yeah.
pieces I know, the only one that I've ever learned a tab is John Williams' version of The Deer Hunter, and I did that because it was John Williams. It was his transcription, and it was in Guitar Player magazine years ago in the '90s. So
Cool.
I thought, yeah, I want to do this, and then Other things, it was all by ear, but that's great because it develops your ear, and there's no substitute for that, obviously, right? But I just the reading thing never really made a great deal of sense to me, and I
Hmm.
still don't think that I could really learn to read at any kind of level. I don't know how guys do that. It seems like walking and chewing gum. I can do one, but I don't think I can do both at the same time. I know people that read really well.
Yeah.
It's a mystery to
Yeah,
me.
the sight read is a skill that um, every day that you sight read, you move forward at the exact same rate that every day that you don't sight read moves you backwards. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's like when I was going to school for music, when I was studying in university, like 10 years ago, um, I was good at sight reading.
Really, eh?
I'm not anymore. It's
Ooh.
just I feel like it truly is like one of those things like you have to keep on it so hard and
Well, you develop some great arranging skills, I must say,
yeah.
and you've got a great ear. And I know
Oh,
that when we
thanks.
work together, you do, you got one pass, second pass, starting to take form, and then it just all comes together. And that happened too when we were working on with Terry on my pen, which is going back to way like 2017. It's like,
Wow.
we do a pass, we're figuring it out, and then it just really comes into focus.
Yeah.
And by the time we hit the record button, like, wow, this is really coming together. And those were a lot of stuff was kept and still right is live off the floor. Even a lot of our new record is a
Yeah.
lot of arranging on the fly, a lot of me showing up, us recording stuff, and then we're not prepared. We don't have much to really. Sometimes we have a few basic tracks done, but a lot of the time we're kind of arranging on the fly, and it's
Yeah, a
amazing.
lot of it's coming from like one or two riffs.
Yeah.
Usually you're coming in with some really great riffs, and us just kind of dancing around it, either harmonically or rhythmically. And I kind of love that about what we do, though. It's like tracking a band live off the floor. It gives like a certain kind of feeling and spirit. And I think we pointed out it like Mahavishnu Orchestra was like a really big touch point for us. Whereas like the first two records, The Birds of Fire and Intermounting Flame, where it just sounds like it's four guys in a room staring at each other, like cueing each other with their eyebrows kind of thing. And I feel like we really had that. Where for a lot of the most exciting parts of this record, it was the three of us in basically the closet-sized
Yeah.
like live
People knew,
tracking
eh?
room.
People
That
knew
yeah.
and
And,
Terry
and,
being
and
able to get those sounds.
yeah, just Terry just chilling on the couch,
Yeah.
being like, yeah, like that's the take, whether it was like the second or third pass through, really. And I feel like that was most of the time where um, we knew if it was the take, basically looking through the window and seeing what Terry's facial expression was.
Oh, totally. And it's a great. I think the one thing is to have the confidence to kind of do that, and hopefully we're capturing the spirit of, as you say, what got you initially motivated by those records
Yeah, like
in the beginning,
there's a
right?
certain scrappiness to that, right? And I love that about hearing yeah, like hearing a performance and hearing like a group of people like kind of just riding right on the edge where there's still the excitement and like a passage of music where I feel like a lot of the time when I'm in the studio, by the time I'm recording a keeper take, like I've rehearsed all of the isms out of it, and I've dialed in a performance so good that I can double it and triple it and quadruple it with like perfection. And then I go and listen to the demo, and sometimes like, oh man, there's certain magic with like the like random
Always.
upstrokes with a groove or something that you kind of miss out on when you've dialed it in so far. And I feel like this record that we did with Terry is often like it's capturing performances when the ideas are still fresh and you haven't had time to overthink it and overcook it and strip away any of those kind of like magical little flourishes
And then
that
to leave it alone and leave it that way too, right? Because we could have
yeah.
gone back and redone this and redone that. I always keep Yes Relayer in mind for that because
Yeah.
I love Yes and I love the airtight records like Close to the Edge and Fragile. But
Relayer sounds like a demo,
I know, but there's just something
but in
so
a good way. In a good way.
manic
Yeah.
about like that guitar solo in Sound Chaser. Nobody would ever do that. Who would do that? It's like it's just so
Well,
free.
Steve. Like, have you talked to him about that solo? Like, do you know? Like, was that prearranged? Was that like
Yeah, that was a piece that was an acoustic piece. That so
interesting?
yeah so
No, that does make sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then in the background, if you can hear it, there's some nylon string guitar doubling the electric. which blows my effing mind. I love
How
that.
like how do you double that? Because like
Down,
there's
da, da,
guaranteed that he didn't
down.
do that to a click. He didn't do
I
that.
know,
Like,
but you can that's the whole thing about the Rush and the Yes records that we learned later.
right.
And what I've done as well in my stuff is I've doubled stuff and lots without clicks, and you can
Yeah.
just do it because if
It's your own internal meter.
yeah, and that's kind of a whole thing about rhythm is that as Keith Richards says, pick. Talk about where to put the beat. Well, he goes, you got to pick where to put it. That's your job. It doesn't, because it can be anywhere. It can be ahead, behind, right on the beat, but you've got to decide. And if you do have this internal clock, then it's not a problem. And then you can find that you can do that. And I've done that on a lot of records where I've doubled things without using a click. And we've done that too because we tracked some things that are doubled where we didn't track to a
There's
click.
no click. Yeah.
And we intentionally didn't use a click because we thought it felt better. And then when I play with Paul DeLong, we have segments where we're not using a click, and it comes off great if you have the right drummer, if you have the right guys that are like-minded,
Yeah.
and then all that tells you is that you're working with the right people, and because you're kind of
When you
meshed
cannot,
together
totally,
somehow, right?
totally.
And that's just a really special thing that is really hard to find.
And I think that's why some of the most prolific musicians are choosing to go solo now. And I'm seeing like most of the the best artists out there like are really just kind of doing it all themselves. Like, are you familiar with McGee? He's
No.
this just ridiculous, really talented player using like all the old like Roland guitar synths now. And
Well, really? You gotta
he's got a song called Rockman, and he uses a Rockman, of course, right? And I got turned on to this guy basically I was looking at a Roland VJ88 guitar synthesizer, and the demo video that this guy had posted was just brilliant. And so I messaged the guy. I was like, "That's amazing playing, man. That's some beautiful stuff." And he's like, "Oh, thanks. I'm just covering this McGee song." So I think it's like MKGEE.
Where's he based out of?
I don't know if he's English or American. I don't really know much about him, but he's like just a new artist that I've discovered. And it's like a younger guy, like late 20s, playing. Like his guitar playing almost reminds me of Joni Mitchell, right? Like a lot of weird tunings, a lot of really weird, beautiful chords, really like huge extensions and suspended thirds and everything. Like all the colors that you and I love about guitar. And this guy's kind of like up there, and I've been reading it. Like a lot of other guitar players are kind of like citing him as being like a really unique, inventive player. And it's just like just someone coming out of nowhere, just doing everything themselves, producing everything themselves. Or like earlier you'd get like the Kevin Parkers of Tame Impala, right, where it's just one guy. Because like I feel like the art of getting 3 or 4 people in a room to make music is gone. Like you don't see a lot of young people wanting to kind of like tie their fate to a bunch of other,
Well, you need a bit of a budget. I
young
know
people.
one
Yeah.
of my favorite bands is the Punch Brothers, and I know that when they had to get together, they would say, okay, rehearsals, and they would all have to fly to New York, and then
Wow.
they would because they all live in different cities,
Yeah.
or back then they did, and then I think they centralized later and make things easier. And that would have been a big deal because then it was like, okay, well, in order to do this thing, we should probably think about living closer, and they did. But you can see how between the rehearsal hall, the flights, or whatever, you're going to need some type of budget, and budgets now are much less, obviously, and I think that from having a record deal that everybody spends the money on the record, but then they don't have anything left over for all the other expenses.
Yeah, you don't think
when
about
in
that,
a perfect world, maybe 20% of your budget should be on your record, and then 40 should be on promotion, and the other 40 on travel or whatever. Does that up
Yeah.
to 100? But you know what I mean. It's just it's tricky business, but with home studios and a workspace like we have here, it's we get things done, and we
Yeah.
can make a record with almost zero budget, right? I mean,
It's true, yeah.
know?
Because I feel like back in the day, just to get the 2-inch tape, it would be like you're looking at such a huge.
well, it's $400 a reel
Yeah.
25 years ago, $350
Yeah.
in the '90s, and then you can do a session. You need a few reels. You need
Yeah, and you need
$1,000 worth of
a
tape.
tape op or an engineer that you're
Yeah,
paying,
sure.
$400 a day, and
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, sure.
nowadays I feel like the cheapest, I mean, form of recording sounds just as good as the most expensive for the most part, and that's why you're seeing like this whole outlay of artists doing everything themselves. And I feel like what we have of being able to make something that might actually sound less polished, less together, and it takes more work to sound worse these days to like set up microphones in a room and capture a performance of a bunch of people. Than it is just to load up samples and and program all of that to
Yeah, well,
perfection.
that was a whole other trip. People were so consumed with getting on the radio that they wanted to make sure. I mean, oh my God, in the '90s, I remember, we'd
Mm.
be doing sessions and be like, "Oh, that's a great snare sound. What is it? Oh, that's Brian Adams' snare." That was a normal conversation you would hear in a studio. The samples would be floating around from various records, and everybody would be
Oh,
using not all of the same sounds, but then now you of course you have the catalogs where you have the Alaire drum sounds, and you have that's a
mm.
different thing. But back then, guys would just have the kick and snare from records that they liked, and maybe they get circulated among engineers. They'd get
Yeah.
their hands on
I,
them
I
somehow.
love like the Def Leppard gated snare. It's so funny. Like, do you know did you hear how they got that specific snare sound like
Well, I
that?
know that some snare sounds were even like a mouth, or not even a snare, and
Yeah.
then treated and squashed, and
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's so funny. There's so many different ways you can do it. Actually, I got my hands on uh the multi tracks of Fragile. Oh, I can't say I did, but
Oh yeah,
my friend
no, they're
Graham
out
did,
there.
and he showed
Yeah.
me. There's actually, like as it is with old tape machines, the older tracks will get a lot of high end shaved off because every time you pass through the
The
tape head,
oxide, yeah,
it
for sure.
deoxidizes, and the drums are usually the first thing tracked, so they get duller and duller and duller. And in order to get like the crisp, snappy attack of the snare drum, apparently they actually used like this, they used the snare mic to trigger a white noise signal generator, probably on Rick Wakeman's Mini Moog. And there's actually like a little white noise, like psh, psh,
Really,
psh.
like which songs? Not all of them, but
Yeah,
like
like
long distance runaround.
long distance runner
Really, eh?
and Heart of the Sunrise. I remember
Wow.
Graham and I, we listened to the isolated drums, and like there it is, and sure enough there's like a white noise signal generator like on like an actual track. Because back in the day, like who knows, right? There'd be like one track that's okay, the tambourine and then an organ and then a backup vocal or whatever, right? It's like because back in the day, if you didn't have enough faders, you just put everything onto one track.
Sure.
And I think that it was one of those things. It was just like an extras track, right, with all this random stuff on it. And
Wow.
there was like white noise triggering for the snare sound. And it's so funny because that is a snare sound I think we all look at as like, wow, it's so organic and live and real. And in the room is
Uh,
Bill Bruford's,
I'll have to listen to that.
the Slingerland,
Yeah.
snare in the room. And it's so funny because it's not. It's a white noise like sample that's being triggered, plus the actual snare in the
Yeah.
room. But so even like going that far back in what 1972, 1973, you see guys layering like samples on
Wow.
snares just
Yeah.
to or again at that point then it was
Well, they
a noise generator to
sure.
add like the snap and crispiness. But it's like so
Les
the
Paul used to. He would do all the background instruments first, so those are the ones with dull in sound, and then as he overdubbed and did sound on sound, he would start putting on lead guitars and then the lead vocals, so that the lead instruments, lead vocal and lead guitar would
cut
have more
through.
treble and more presence, and the other ones being and that's and you can hear it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah, wow.
Oh yeah, I got to use the medium to its like use all of its disadvantages and get that crispy gooiness that we all love of tape recordings.
Well, I
I
don't. Tape is. It's a lot of headaches too, but those that sound is amazing. I'd love to make a record on tape. At least I'm saying that now, but
until you do, I
until you
remember.
actually
Yeah,
do
I
it.
remember thinking I wanted to work with tape until I got like a Tascam 4-track cassette recorder,
Hmm.
and even just dealing with that, I was like, nah, I'm a digital man. It's so
I
much
made
easier.
well I released a record called Reel to Reel Revisited, and it's all my reel to reel recordings that
Cool.
Rich Chicky ended up he put it into his Mac way back in the 90s and mastered it.
Hmm.
And I printed up some cassettes way back, and then I released it. I kind of liked the way it sounded, so I released it, on iTunes a few years ago. But it was all my recordings from the early 90s of all quarter-inch, 8-track Fostex.
Wow.
Yeah. But it sounds like Mike Oldfield. That's really cool. Yeah.
There's a certain character
Oh yeah,
that
it's wild.
yeah.
It's wild. I hated it back then. I felt self-conscious because I thought my engineering wasn't up to snuff, or it should somehow sound cleaner and this and that. And now I listen
No, we
back,
love that. It's
and now I
character.
think it's freaking cool.
Nice.
But
Reel to Reel Revisited. I'll have to visit that one as
yeah, no,
well. Yeah.
it's yeah, it's all the same instrumentation, all the acoustics and 12 strings and loud, and I had all that stuff back then, and
How
pedal
many
steel.
albums do you have, Dave?
I have about 2 dozen albums, and the rest another 2 dozen or 30 EPs and
Wow.
singles. So I have somewhere in the neighborhood of over 50 releases,
Wow.
and that's not including the records that I played on. I don't know how many records I played on. A lot of them are very obviously indie things that are not very well known. I did a few singles and records and things that ended up being pretty cool a long time ago. But yeah, my own releases. There's about 2 dozen David Barrett Trio releases and 2 dozen 30 David Barrett releases or so.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'll tell you the quick story of how that came to be. Um, there was this guy, Derek Sivers, and he started CD Baby, and I bought around the same time I bought a digital recorder, and then CD Baby came into be, and then I saw back then it was a little more. I don't know what it was, $29 or something like that, and then you upload your record and they put it to all digital servers in one click, right? And I thought, okay, let me get this right. I can make a record in my bedroom, and then I can upload it. It's available everywhere. And he was a real trailblazer because the HTML code and the look of the site was very crude, but they did this stuff and they also kept inventory. So they would mail out your CDs and they would do mail order for you. And I
Wow.
sold.
That it's like that mail fulfillment's
Yeah,
huge.
and I've
Yeah.
over the 20 years, I don't know how many in sales I've done, something like $10,000 or something like that.
That's great.
And yeah, and a lot of them are, are downloads and streaming. So that's like a lot when you're talking 70 cents here, or in the streaming case of
Yeah,
streaming,
point
you're
zero
talking
zero
point zero zero
zero.
0.004 depending
Yeah.
on the territory, right? So anyway, here's my plan. My plan was, okay, I've stopped touring. Everything seems to have dried up.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
I'm
what year was this again?
2002. And then for a couple of years, I really didn't know what to do, but I was still recording. So I was very busy making all these recordings. And that's the stuff that Kevin mastered for me, which is Leviathan. And all these digital recordings that I did, and there's so many of them, because the stuff that I didn't put on that record that Kevin mastered of all that era from between 2000
There's some
and
amazing music
2002.
there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a few years, and there's a lot of other classical stuff or Scarface themes, Deer Hunter themes, movie themes, stuff that I did. But I picked the stuff that we did, was maybe 20 some odd tunes that I released from that era. But anyway, I'm
Yeah,
taking a little
kind
too
of like
long.
an experimental, like
It was just shoegaze, totally right.
Yeah.
But it's really what was in my. It was what was in my head, and that's how I heard music at the time. So all the modern composers like Steve Reich and all the pulses, I was kind of hearing that, and that's what I was kind of spitting out in my 8-track. But I kind of said to myself, okay, well, I really can't imagine going to try and play in a pop band at this age or this time, because that's just not where my head's at. But I want to play guitar music, and so I thought I'm just going to keep recording this stuff, and then I could release. Made a pact with myself to release one record a year. So I released like one record a year digitally, and I got up to record 6 or 7. And by that one, I would drive over to Big Al's house, and I would drop off like a CD on his porch, and I'd email him, hey, Al, I dropped off my latest record. He goes, and he'd be like, oh, another one of your stupid records, you know. And but on record number, I think it was the Dead Arm, and he goes, Dave, this is really good. You should we should go in the studio, you know. And it kind of blew my mind, but I because I was kind of hoping he would say something like that. But anyway, so that led to David Barrett Trio and doing all this other stuff. But I just thought I'd keep doing it until something happens.
Yeah.
And because
Well, I mean, that's so cool. I mean, just to go from dropping off CDs on your hero's porch and being like, I want to produce.
well, I mean, I knew him. Like I would do it so that I wouldn't be like, you know, coming in
Yeah.
and raiding his wine cellar. I mean, I did that too, but not to. You know, he's very gracious that he would always listen to them. And the other guy that, you know, I probably told stories about too is that I would send them to Steve Howe,
Wow.
and he would listen to them and give me little critiques about what he liked and what he didn't like.
Right,
Again.
and it's so hard to find someone who's actually going to be honest. So usually it's like, oh yeah, it's cool, man. Great,
Steve Howe's
great
got
playing.
no. Al does not have a hard time being honest, and Steve Howe doesn't either. He was really amazing because he would give me this little breakdown, and it was. You know, and what he
That's-
didn't like,
yeah.
and it was, and he kind of still does, but maybe to a lesser degree now. But you know, I like to send them stuff, and I've sent Al stuff that we've done, and you know, I don't tell you guys, you know, because you're probably going, "What are you doing? Sending it's not finished."
Oh God.
You know,
Yeah.
and but I don't know. It's something I've always done because I think that if you're in a position to have some mentors and they're going to actually take the time to go, yeah, I listen, and maybe, I mean, you know, I get it. It's a funny thing. You know, it's not like you're being needy. It's the human impulse is to want to share what you do, and then get some feedback. And truly, and Al said something to me which was really great. He said, you know, sometimes, you know, instead of you being like, if I don't like something, instead of you being bummed, he says it just makes you work harder. And so I would go, okay, you don't like that? Well, here's another 15 demos, you know, which again,
you are so prolific.
Yeah.
That is one thing I feel like I'm so lucky that we've been able to work together. And have this really great creative relationship over the last like year or two, and like, you know, in the band that I'm in, like I find a lot of the time like I'm the one bringing the initial ideas, and it's the first time like, you know, you just come through the door like, you know, new idea pretty much every week, and we flesh
amazing,
it out
eh?
like every time.
Yeah.
It's just so so refreshing, you know, just like you never have a lack of ideas. And even if we have no ideas and we sit down and we just pick a key,
we leave with a
and-
track.
yeah, but I find like, you know, I lend myself to harmony and texture so well, and you lend yourself to melody so well.
Yeah.
And like, those are different kinds of skills. And it's just, I don't know, I find like when you find, as you said before, when you find someone that you connect with creatively, you got to hold on to that, because it's
Because
so
sometimes
rare to
you'll
find it.
go in a different direction, and I'm sometimes a little more obvious with my arranging, and sometimes you do some unexpected things, and it's like, oh, okay, well that's cool, but I got to step back a little bit, right?
Right.
Because instead of saying no, I go no, that's actually better. You've done that many times,
Right, yeah, like with like reharmonizing something, yeah, like totally, where you think,
or even
oh,
putting the rhythm in a different place, right?
Oh,
Mine
yeah.
might be a little more. Oh, the guitar goes like this, so let's make the rest of the band do this. I've really been guilty of that a lot. And sometimes it's really effective because
Yeah.
I like to move things like an orchestra. But sometimes you come at it from a different place where you're going to do like a counterpoint or a counter rhythm, and it's really cool. So
Totally.
we've got a great thing going on, I think.
I
can't wait
agree.
for people to hear it. I have to, you know. But I was going to add one more thing too, you know. Like when I started working with Terry, we started working. I called
And
Terry.
what year did you start working with
I
Terry
called
Brown?
Terry out of the blue in 2016, and he was so awesome. He just like, it's like I'd known him my whole life. He just picks up the phone. Oh yes, and then let's meet. So we met for coffee, and then we're starting to work together. And then we've done, I don't even know how many records together. Like it's a lot. And he's always available, always into it, and never takes a break. Like when we mix or we're in a
Yeah.
studio, Terry doesn't really need to go take a break. And when we work
He's-
together,
yeah, he's still like
we don't go take off. We're in the studio for hours. I get here at 7 and we leave at 2:30 in the morning. And it's always like that. And it's not like, oh, let's just get out of here and go get some Indian food or something. Like, yeah, we do that, but if we go for Indian food, we're going for Indian food.
Yeah.
We're not doing it during a work day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And it makes me wonder, like, I feel like that must be very common in the industry. I feel like whenever you meet other studio rats, it's like an instant kind of kinship, right? Like we're all...
I used to love that back in the day, man. It's like I learned so much from Rich Chicky working at the Jeff Healey studio, and because we did so many sessions, I just can't even tell you. I was there all the time. I used to sleep upstairs in the little den, living space area on the couch, and it was such an amazing time because yes, I had done stuff at Sounds Interchange and Metalworks and all that stuff, but. And even when I was in high school, I did. But something about working with an engineer that knows the process better than you and knows all the editing and is intuitive, it kind of shaped my standard of what recording is, and then the kind of things you could do. And we even back then,
like the early days.
Wow,
of
I would
digital,
learn a part backwards, and then we'd flip the tape around, and I'd play it backwards, and then we'd put the tape on, and then it would play in time with the solo. It's like we did stuff like
right. See, I always wondered. Yeah, so what's that one song?
There's a Beatles one.
Yeah. There's this one Crosby, Stills and Nash song like I'm thinking where Steven Stills does like a backward guitar solo. Yeah, and it just makes me think. It's like, how did they do that? Right? Like, was it just fuck around, play the solo, and then reverse it? No, like you must have had to, like you just said, like you had to figure it out backwards.
You learn it backwards, and I did that on Disappearance, which is very simple line, da 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 da, right? But and then two chords, and then we didn't flip the tape around because we were using in Pro Tools, but I just took like two bars, 1 2 3 4, da da. And backwards it's down, and you just memorize it, it's don't even have to use a looper. You can just kind of count the beats and then flip it around, and then you do it, and it's like, oh, that's cool. So if you listen to Disappearance, the chords come in, and it's a great effect. But it's just it's just, I don't know. You do enough. You know what it's like. You've been making records, and you've been hanging around studios in Nashville, and you've been doing all that stuff too. So you've kind of picked up all these things along the way as well, right?
Yeah. And like, do you ever feel like spending all that time in studios? It's just like such a magical place, and I feel like, do you feel like the industry moving away from the big studio and the major label model and moving towards a lot of artists are being able to make entire records with their phones? Like, do you think something's being lost where we don't have that like kind of singular experience of you got 4 or 5 people in a room trying to make one piece of art together? Now we're seeing just one person being able to make
we had a return to it,
right? So like
when we did our record, we had a return to that where we always made a point of always being in the same room together.
Yeah.
And the times that Cody wasn't here was totally fine because we were working on, all these Moog overdubs or whatever. So he was here when he needed to be, and he was here for the creative writing, especially the giant tunes where we were all in the same room together, and we wrote that stuff together,
and a lot of that arrangement stuff,
and that was amazing. That was like that was a return to maybe how they used to do things, and also maybe a return to how we would like it to be in our head. That's why when we brought Terry down for some of those live trackings, I just said to Terry, Terry, it just sounds better when you hear.
It does. Everyone plays better when Terry Brown's in the room.
That's true, but it's a thing, and
and again, like for so many musicians, like I feel like I caught the tail end of it. People, musicians entering their careers in their 20s now, they're never gonna get in a room with that many people. I don't think.
I got to add one thing to it, which I would have done. I see when I was a kid, I had a reel-to-reel deck, and I was experimenting with sound on sound.
Yeah.
And I made all these recordings. I thought it was Mike Oldfield. Everything sounded like Omadon. And
What a great record.
I had an organ, and I had a Korg. I had whatever keyboards that were lying around with it, whatever keyboard I was playing with at the time when I
Yeah.
was like 15 or whatever. And I had a bass. I had a steel guitar. I had all the instrument, mandolin, everything at my disposal, and I always saw myself as a little bit of that kind of guy. So, and when I started doing more sessions, I really didn't want to go down that road and be a session guy in that world because I didn't think it was really for me.
You're an amazing player, but you're also an amazing composer and arranger.
Well,
and that's
I
something
thought
that,
so.
like,
Thanks.
Yeah.
But nobody else thought so.
Right. Yeah. No,
Right?
no one wants that. Yeah. You walk in the studio.
No,
you're
no
like,
manager or anybody in a record company. I remember I was in an office once, and the New York Sony people called up and they asked who played guitar on this Amanda Marshall thing.
Sure.
And
And what year was this?
94, maybe something like
wow.
that. And I just happened to be in the office at the time.
Okay.
And she goes, "Oh, that's just Dave," and that's great, but it wasn't like
So the A&R was calling. It'd be like, wow, the guitar playing's great. Who is this kind of thing?
yeah, it was kind of like that. I mean,
Cool.
they were asking who it was, and Tom Panunzio had engineered or produced the stuff, and Tom Panunzio had worked on things like Born to Run and Darkness in the Edge of Town.
Wow,
So
great
I
records.
if
Yeah.
I had a better disposition for recording and being that kind of guy, I would have liked a career to do more of that. But I really saw myself as I was really stuck on the idea that I was a band guy, and I really wanted my band to kind of transform and be something that I thought it could be. And that album that we were working on at that time later, Big Al ended up mixing it, but it never really came to fruition, never really got a fair shake, and really never really amounted to anything. And that happens over and over again with bands, as you know.
Yeah.
And so that's the risk. And now, would I do things differently? Like, would I like to be? I mean, if I was a better player, like Steve Lukather or something, then yeah, I probably would have done way more sessions and would have
Right.
gone down that road. And I think I could do that now, but I don't think that my timing and my level of professionalism, meaning attitude,
Right.
were great. And
Right, because there's a totally different kind of like.
it's a totally different thing.
It's a different bedside manner to be Dave Barrett or
Yeah.
Dave the session guitar player.
Yeah, because I had some great sessions
Yeah.
and some great times, but it's never something that I really wanted
You
to
have
do.
to sacrifice a big part of your musical identity to do
Yeah,
that.
but what I wanted to do is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So when people ask me, well, what would you, if you could do anything, what would you do? I'd say, well, I'm already doing it.
Right.
What do you want from me? I'm making records with Crown Lands, Terry Brown, my own trio, and I'm loving everything I do. Oh yeah, and I'm also, I'm a writer. I'm a composer. But back then, everybody was very, very fixated on the record company,
Yeah.
the artist, and then where's the material coming from? Meaning there were songwriters,
Right, coming from publishing houses, kind of thing.
and you
right?
would come in the morning and you would get a song that was from various songwriters, and you wouldn't get a cassette. You'd learn it right on the spot, and then you track it, and
Yeah, you have to be a guy to get it in the first or second take, basically.
certainly, punches and things were all a part of it, but you just basically you need to get a part together so that it happens.
Some kind of
now.
underlick, some kind of hook that.
Yeah. I mean, but it's got to happen now. It's not happening like when you're like you don't go out and work on it and come back. You don't learn the song. You hear it once and you play it. I mean,
And again, but in a lot of ways, like that kind of like soulless corporate rock or corporate music era, right, where you get like a publisher with the basic song, you put the basic blocks together, and then okay, like the A&R guy at the label like pairs the right publishing, with the right artist, blah blah blah, and then you get the right players. But again, like it's kind of again like that soulless corporate thing, but then you end up with guys like Lukather and Leland Sklar and Pino Palladino and it's just insane players that would show up and play like crazy parts right off the hook, and it was magic. Where again, like now you've got Logic AI
Yeah, it's
like
different, right?
systems that will just
Oh,
like
I
plug it
know, and
in
then
and
those guys complain now that they go in and people just ask them to play 4 or 8 bars, and then they go, "Okay, that's
we'll
good.
just loop
Thank you
it.
know,
Yeah.
we'll chop it up, and eh."
Yeah. Just
But
just play all the notes. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I know that, like, I think it's a great thing, and it's a great thing for your ego to know that you can do something like that and be that kind of guy. But I held on to this idea that I really wanted to write my own music, and I
Yeah.
don't know that if I would do that again. And you've done it. You haven't. It's like I've never really made a living playing covers.
Right.
I did that for a couple of years when I was 20, and I played in a U2 tribute act, and I traveled across the country doing universities and good gigs, like good bars, and packing them and making money. But quickly after a couple of years, I just thought, this is ridiculous. I can't keep doing this. This is horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
this
You
is
got to
like
Yeah. You
this
got to
is
find
like
your
this
own
is
thing.
like this is not the music business. This is like the bar business. You know, like
Well,
like
that's a great thing. I mean, that's basically music business is the bar business, and we're kind of seeing it starting to like really like radically change. Like, and I've worked in music venues basically my entire adult life, as in one way or another, and I've seen like no one drinks the same way, and it used to be like that was how bars would just make a living, right? They didn't,
how do they make any money now?
I don't know, you
Well,
gotta,
they're all closing, right?
yeah, yeah, it's crazy, and we're seeing Live Nation basically buying up every music venue and buying the property on it. And whenever a venue goes under, all of a sudden you see condos going up, and you're seeing how like Live Nation is basically just a real estate company, and it's kind of terrifying. I don't know what the next step is. I feel like artists need to band together and
Well, what's on
you
the
know.
horizon for Crownlands?
Oh,
Is there
good.
anything you want to talk about?
What do I want to talk about? So we've got a really cool instrumental record that we did with you that I'm really really excited about, and we're finishing up a deal right now with a new record label that I'm very very excited
Yeah.
about. Don't know how much more I'm allowed to talk about, but
No, that's enough. But
um,
let's just say that it's a top-notch label,
yeah,
and
yeah, I'm really
and it's
excited.
not here. It's abroad or across the pond.
Yeah, it's nice that we're gonna be working with an international team, but even then, like our manager is so switched on and like tuned into the entire world, and he's seeing that most of the artists that are winning like are retaining their rights, and doing everything themselves, right? But it's like um, you really need like at this day, like you need to be like independently wealthy. To be an artist a lot of the time, or at least a touring artist, I should say, right? Because like the expenses, if you want to bring any kind of production these days, it's just absolutely absurd. And so I feel like that's why the band that I'm doing is kind of turning into like not a studio only band, but a studio mostly band, just because
Interesting.
because we've seen them, for so long. Like when I was coming up in the music industry, it was like streaming doesn't make money, touring makes money. Go on tour, go on tour, go on tour, and we finally got to the point where touring made money, and then COVID hit, and over the last 4 years or so, 5 years, touring now loses money, and so a lot of artists that were making money in touring are breaking even at best now, and so it's so interesting where streaming hasn't all of a sudden changed and started making money, but touring isn't doing what it used to. So I don't really know
Well,
what
that's
the
why we're
future's going
trying
to be
to
of live music.
do things like this, do podcasts, do YouTube things, do other
Yeah.
things to round out what we do,
Yeah,
right?
you have to like make video content all day, every day. But again,
Which
but we're seeing that social media algorithms are becoming, what is I call it? It's like the walled garden effect, where it used to be, um, what was it? Excuse me, It used to be called a chronological posting algorithm, where if you followed like 1,000 pages and you went on a scroll, on any of these algorithms, like on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, TikTok came after the way that the algorithm worked. But if you followed 1,000 pages, and each of those pages like posted like a post in that day, and you scrolled and you saw 1,000 posts, you're going to see it posted in the chronological order. Whereas nowadays it's built around um, whatever you're interacting with. And so let's say out of those 1,000 pages, they've all made one post, but they noticed in the last 3 days you liked 3 pages more. Now it's just going to show you those 3 pages and then like whatever sponsored from that. And so like you're not seeing like a chronological posting of everyone you're following anymore. And as a content creator, as a musician, like you're not going to be able to actually get a new audience through posting a lot, and so
So
you
the
get like the
creator
wall
doesn't get a new audience, and the listener is not really getting.
what they're actually following,
Yeah,
anyways, right? And it's just like,
that's crazy.
so it's the same thing with Spotify, where it's like the way that their shuffle algorithm works. Like again, if you have like a playlist of 50 songs, and like you've played that playlist a few times without being in shuffle, those first 3 songs are going to get played more. And because they've been played more, it thinks that you like them more. And so now it's going to play those more. And so you see how it's just a never-ending feedback loop where you stop seeing anything new. You stop hearing anything new. And we're seeing that, like, in social media, we're seeing that with streaming. And I don't know what the solution is. Again, I feel like the solution is like we just like, we got to shut off our phones and go outside and touch grass. But I guess it's very hard right now and there's 10 feet of snow.
I don't know. I've noticed the difference in YouTube. I see that I see how it is changing the algorithms, and I don't really know what to do about it. I do know that every day I get more subscribers on my YouTube channel, and then I do always get a couple of new listeners. So
That's pretty
it's
cool.
working in some way, but it's not working probably in the way that we would like it to, meaning, I guess just because there's just so much content, and here we are adding to the content stream.
Content.
But
It's true.
yeah, we'll figure. I don't know. I was going to say we'll figure it out, but maybe we won't figure it out. I don't know.
Maybe that's okay.
Maybe that's okay.
I feel like you just got to do what you feel is in your soul and whatever. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's only so much time you have on this planet, so you just got to do what you want to do. And I don't want to, I don't want to go and do some silly TikTok dances, but I'll more than happily, get
See,
together
that's
with
the
my
thing. You've
buddies
got
to
to
talk
pick your
about
battles,
music.
right? Because I went on, everybody tell me I got to go on TikTok. So I created a TikTok account and I looked around and I hated it. And then I posted what I thought were some cool videos, from an old guy. And I got no clicks. And then I go, oh my God, I'm one of these guys trying to get clicks. I don't want to be that guy. I want to play to my small fan base, or I would rather call them a listenership or whatever than use the word fan. But I do know that I've got a very small, dedicated people that listen to what I do. And they support it every year with GoFundMe's or whatever. And I'm really grateful for all of that.
I think that's like a really clever way that you've done it with like the kind of like crowdfunded pre-ordered record. And I see that happen every year. It's always a success. You're always putting out like really interesting new music, and you're working with really cool people. I mean, what else are what else do you want to do? Like, do you want to go on, do like a tour or?
Well, I love the fact that we did some shows together and it felt like being on the road. I mean, we played My Summit, and then we did Burnstown, which is a great little venue outside of Ottawa. We did the Fort Erie thing, whatever that
Sanctuary,
and we did we did the New Year's thing in that great venue in Oshawa.
Yeah,
and that really took the place for me of like a tour, because here we are doing this mini string of shows in Southern Ontario, having a great time and getting our act together, because some dicey moments the first show or two between the gear and the brain freezes. Like, which version is this we're playing? Because I've been listening to the other version.
Rearranging for live changes everything for sure.
The Terry Brown arrangement. I'm not doing his arrangement. I'm playing my arrangement.
Too bad the other guys aren't.
Too bad the other guys aren't. But we got over that hurdle. It's been great, and it feels good and rewarding without being a tour. So it's a nice compromise. Don't get me started. I don't have an answer to the replacement for an income type thing, but at least I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like to be in the music industry in 2025, you have to diversify your income and do tons of stuff, right? Whether it's like if you're composing music for sync, but again, AI is kind of like doing a lot of that, right? It's like the $300 gigs of like write a jingle is gone now, right? You can just program that in. So I feel like there's but at the end of the day, you got to find jobs in the music industry that that can't be replaced by by robots. So you got to just do front of house sound or do
Well,
monitors or
so what else before we wrap? What's else is on the horizon for you? And you mentioned that you have a record with me. You've got your own instrumental record. You're working on the new Crownlands,
Yeah,
and
I'm producing.
you're producing
I'm
artists.
producing artists. I've got a couple records that I'm mixing right now. Yeah, I've got a project with Nick Johnson I'm working on. A project I'm working on with a good friend of mine, Steve Lavery. He's the music director for J.J. Wild, who's up for yet another Juno Award for Rock Album of the Year, which is just unbelievable. Um, God, what else is
And
going on?
Nick is a major talent.
Oh, Nick's unreal. What a guy. Beautiful human too.
Yeah, I love Nick. We got to go out
Yeah,
sometime
we
soon.
got yeah. Oh God, yeah, we do.
We got, you know what, we got to get Nick, we got to get Nick, we got to do a podcast with Nick. Got to get him talking.
Oh yeah, he's a
His
absolute
stories are the
legend.
best. I don't know if some of them he wouldn't want to repeat probably, but oh my god, the I won't even go there with some. I let him tell the stories, but the George Lynch story is the best.
Oh my God, it's so funny. Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like you have to be busy, like all the time, and just
Yeah.
again, like you got to be just in it. And I feel like pretty much every day I'm here at the studio working on something. And
Well, I was really surprised and very happy to see that, you guys wanted to. The time came, about to do some recording with me again, but
yeah,
also the other stuff that you're doing is you're doing stuff with your wife Kaylin. You're doing stuff with, as you mentioned, Nick, and you're producing. So
yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah, Kaylin just put a record out, 21 songs.
Yeah,
She's so prolific.
the stuff sounds great.
Thanks. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's fantastic. So I feel like there's just something like, yeah, again, you just have to be doing it every day,
yeah.
and
There's no replacement for that, is there? You've got to be.
got to put the 10,000 hours in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you've clearly done that with guitar. Like I always say, man, like when you pick up a guitar, there's like a certain um authority to the sound, right? Like I can play an E major chord and you can play
Because
an E
I'm
major
pushy.
chord. You are. But no, there's something about it, right? And I feel like you can spend so much time as a musician trying to like understand the language of it all, and it takes just as long to find your own way of saying it. And I feel like, it's so important to have that kind of identity as a musician and like to be irreplaceable, right? Like I think that's why you ran away screaming from the session world. It's because you want to be like, you want someone to hear like a note, and be like, yep, that's Dave Barrett.
Yeah, that's true. I did kind of feel that way, and I admire you guys because what you guys have had at a younger age was you kind of came out of the gate with this fully formed idea of what you wanted to do, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that when we didn't know each other, just fate would have it that you guys played before the band that I was coaching at School of Rock at the pub
Oh yeah.
in blah blah, what's it called,
And Stove,
in Stouffville, for the Guinness Book of World Records thingy, where they played
it's the longest
the
running
longest continuous concert, which I think it went on for like 8 months. But anyway, you guys played before us, and I was watching this
Yeah,
duo.
no, I think it did go on for something like that.
It was something like 6 weeks or something insane like that, yeah. And you guys played before us, and I thought, who are these guys? This is crazy. You were doing, I think you had a whammy pedal and an SG,
Yep.
and it was awesome. And it was upstairs at this pub, and to literally what, like 24 people, maybe not
Maybe,
even.
yeah.
And the stage was so small, but you guys played with such conviction. It was really cool. It was amazing. It was like, okay, is every band going to be like this? Because
Thanks, man. Yeah, that was so funny. Like I forgot that that's how we actually met. Like I remember, helping work at. I was volunteering to help your guitar summit for the first. It was the first year at Chalet.
yeah, that's right. And now that would have been like, I don't know, like the year after or something. And then
Yeah.
we had I had the bright idea to ask you guys, and you said yes to record with Terry.
What a great set of circumstances, man. It's
Yeah.
been a really really fantastic few years.
We made a great record. Anybody that doesn't know it, it's Mayapan, and two 14-minute songs. Side A is Mayapan, side B is Beneath the Desert. And that was a real highlight for me. And I think it was the Terry and I had done a bunch of stuff prior to that, but that was when we really, I think, stepped into what we really wanted to do, or it just felt right.
Yeah.
And it was very ambitious, such long songs. And Terry, I said to Terry, Terry, I want to do two 14-minute songs, and I want to have a big long soundscape where we make sounds and jungle sounds for like 7 minutes. And Terry's like, okay. It wasn't
Well,
like, yeah, and you guys went with it too, and it's like,
yeah.
and it was awesome.
I feel like that's something that's missing in a lot of modern progressive rock is like the fucking wild ambient passages. You know, like I was talking to Cody about it today. Of like, you know,
oh
like look
yeah,
at Moonchild off of, you know, in the Court of the Crimson King, where it's like, you know, 2 minutes of a song, you're like, damn, this is really going somewhere, and then it's just fucking like bells ringing for the next 10 minutes.
yeah.
You don't really, you're not seeing that kind of like experimental thing
When
anymore.
I was a kid, I heard in the Court of the Crimson King on Q107, I don't know, I was 13 or 14. And I was listening to the radio, and I got up out of bed and I wrote down the title of the record because it blew my mind.
That's the perfect age to hear that record.
It's like, what is this?
Yeah. I think I was about that age hearing that album for the first time too, and it was
I mean,
insane.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
So good.
It's a little Nigel Tufnell and everybody. Well, I think that was great.
Yeah,
that was a good.
that's
I
good.
hope that if anybody's tuning in, that they're enjoying us talking about music as much as we've enjoyed talking about it,
Oh yeah.
and we will do more.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Definitely. I'll
Right.
see you
Thank
next time
thank
on.
you, Kevin.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me on Scarborough and Cottrue.
Okay.